and good to have you with us on Poll Adda. This is a special series that we've launched right now, starting tonight, and will continue all the way to the culmination of the big election season. Yes, you're right. A special conversation that we're going to have every weekend. And every weekend, we're going to pick up one state. There are 5 states that are going to elections. Every weekend, we'll pick up one state. We will get you big voices, influencers, famous names and famous faces, people from all walks of life. We've got artists, we've got writers and poets, professors, lawyers and doctors. We will get you the voice of the people. And we'll talk about the election flavor. It's not simply going to be all these serious conversations that you have about the poll arithmetic. It's not really going to be about the poll dynamics and the alliances and the caste politics and all of that. It's actually going to be what the people are talking about. It's also going to be a lot about the voting culture, the political culture, the history, and you know, everything else that is related to a poll adda, an adda that you would see in many parts of our country where people just sit around together, have a casual conversation about life and politics. Tonight, we start off with Tamil Nadu, and I've got a power-packed panel. I'm super excited to be speaking to all of them. But let's just quickly look at what the scene is right now in Tamil Nadu. This election season, what have really been the big talking points? Of course, you know, right on top of everybody's mind is the fact that this is the first state election without Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi. After the demise of Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi, this will be the first election that the state is going to witness. The 2 big parties, the 2 stalwarts of the political setup in Tamil Nadu will not be present. AIADMK is facing anti-incumbency. Tamil Nadu is one of those states, just like Kerala, where you see, you know, voters choosing one or the other party alternately, and that really went on for several terms. But that actually got broken last time when AIADMK was chosen back to power. At that time, Jayalalitha was still at the helm. Now, will the voters bring back the AIADMK the 3rd time? That's what everybody's talking about. And that's where the litmus test for E. Palaniswamy, the chief minister, really comes in. Now, a big leader who's really come into his own in the last few years, especially as the chief minister. He was challenged by many within his own party. He was also challenged by Sasikala and company. But so far, he's managed to hold on, and now he is the CM face for AIADMK in these elections. There is some amount of uneasiness when it comes to AIADMK and the BJP. They've decided to join hands and go ahead together. But a lot of difference of opinions on strategy, even on certain issues. For example, now the CAA. But let's actually move on and tell you how for AIADMK it's not really been an easy ride for up till this point. Lots of internal rifts and battles. But at this point, it looks like Palaniswamy has managed to get his house together. BJP, of course, is looking to gain further presence, to actually get a toehold in the state where it's not really a big player. The 2 big players are AIADMK and the DMK. The national parties have largely been on the sidelines, especially the BJP. Then let's not forget Kamal Hassan, who actually started off his political career with the general elections in 2019. While he did get some vote share there, he did not manage to win any seats. His party didn't manage to win any seats. This time he's attempting to create a 3rd front, bring about a few other smaller parties together and make a big difference. So that's something that many people are watching out for. As is with every Tamil Nadu election, freebies and sops have made a comeback this time around as well. And parties are really in a race to make promises to people of what all they'll get if they are chosen to power. So that's largely what we've seen in Tamil Nadu so far. But tonight, we have a very special panel. So without wasting any more time, let me introduce to you those who are joining us this evening. And let's say good evening. The panelists who are joining us right now, I've got Salma, who's a poet, who's joining me this evening. I've also got Jayaram Venkateshan, convener of the Arappum Iyakam, who joins us this evening, a Speak to Movement foundation that he started. I've got Chinmay Sripada, singer who speaks her mind without any fear, joins us this evening. Gobina Chandran, if you are from the state of Tamil Nadu, you know him very well. a journalist and a TV presenter who hosts his own shows and has discussions on those shows himself, extremely popular. Mohan Raman, a regular on our shows for a lot of the political conversations that we've had, or even about other controversies in Tamil Nadu. Always a pleasure to have Mr. Mohan Raman. Professor Ramu Manivanan, he's a professor of political science and public policy and administration, currently with the Madras University, joining us this evening. Thank you so much to all of you for being with us this evening on this conversation. And I actually want to start off with Gopinath. Gopinath, let me first start off by asking everyone, what's your favorite thing about any election season? As a citizen and a voter, what's your favorite part?
So starting from me.
Could you tell
Gopinath, yes, the question was to you.
The question is on me.
Gopinath Chandran, if you can hear me, the question was to you.
Yeah, can you repeat the question because the audio was not registered? I couldn't get your audio.
Okay, we got to try and fix that. Okay, he can hear me now. So, okay. So, Gopinath, I'm asking you, what is your favorite part about any election season as a citizen and a voter? What's that one thing you watch out for?
Good evening to everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. As a voter, my favorite thing with every other election is the expectation, like any other citizen of the country. Tamil Nadu is an aspiring state. So, as one of the person who is living in the state, that I'm also an aspirant. At the same time, expecting to balance the downtrodden people's life. So, as a television person who have a direct interaction with the people, my view in this election is how these people, how the political parties, those are going to win, are facing the growth versus the survival. That is the most important factor, what I'm looking for.
Okay, very, very interesting. And I love to ask people this question because everybody has a very different way of seeing the elections and how these elections really pan out. So let me actually take this question across to Mr. Jairam Venkatesan. Mr. Jairam Venkatesan, for you as a voter, what excites you about any election season?
Election by itself is exciting because it gives the voter the power to choose the government that we want, and therefore the things that we focus on is the promises that these political parties make during the election. See, because we are the manifestos of the parties, of each of the parties, are extremely important because that is what we can make them accountable over the next 5 years. So therefore, as we progress towards the election, there are two things that is very, very important. One is the manifesto, what are the promises that are made. The second thing is the candidate. Who are the candidates who are standing in election? What is their criminal background? What are their assets? What is the income that they have declared? What are the kind of candidates that each party chooses to stand in different constituencies. So these are the ones that excite us to look for these people. And finally, of course, we, as a group, we are working for informed choice. We are taking all these as awareness to citizens, and so that citizens can make an informed choice.
Yes, informed choices, and I think it's extremely important. And often what happens in all the noise in an election season about personalities and controversies and who said what, we often forget what is it that the parties are specifically promising us to do for us if they are voted to power. And Salma, to me, I think that's one of the most important things to watch out for. Unfortunately, sometimes the poll manifestos are released too late for even people to make that informed choice. But in Tamil Nadu, we know what each party is promising now. The manifestos are out. What gets you excited, Salma, about any election, specifically this one?
Yes, this election most important one for us. For Tamilians, I think so. because this government running last 4 years, they failed to prove them. They have a lot of gave a lot of assurance for the people, but they didn't do anything for the people. First, three aspects in which this government has failed. First one, they have abandoned the state's autonomy in many fronts. Secondly, women's safety. Women's safety has worst in this last 4 years. In Pollachi, lot of problem against women. This government tried to save the criminals. uh, this government is failed this kind of ways. And one more thing, recently the IPS officer who violated a women officer, then the big issue, sexual harassment, the case was big issue. But so many aspects this government is failed. Now we are waiting for the result. Already these people are so much affected because of this government. The proxy government, not only the ADMK, the coalition with ADMK and BJP. They are the IDMK. We have like a proxy government of BJP. The BJP controlled everything. The ADMK people and the ADMK ministers, they looted the last 4 years. They looted this state also. Our rights, we lost all the rights. One more thing is I want to tell, every citizen we have right to protest against this government. Every citizen, this is a democratic country, but they don't allow them people when we are protest against writers, especially writers and the opposite party. We started against the CAA protest and against the government and so many sterlite issues. This government is filed a lot of FIR against the people who was the protesters. Me also, as an activist, I was attended so many protests. But these kind of way, this government is going to fail this time.
Okay,
We are waiting for the result.
protests, the anti-CA protests really resonated across the country and, in Tamil Nadu as well. And I think even this party, AIADMK, now recognizes they've made a promise now that if they come to power, if they return to power, they're going to ask the government, central government, to take back this law, which is very interesting because when the voting took place in the Rajya Sabha, AIADMK went ahead and backed the CAA law. But that put aside, Mr. Mohan Raman, good evening to you. What is getting you extremely interested and intrigued this election season? There are so many colorful aspects to it.
Oh, yes. An election is invariably a time for color in terms of various political flags, their hues, their shades, whether it's extreme left or extreme right or somewhere in the center. However, contrary to what my earlier speaker took a stand, I'm not, either pro DMK or pro AIADMK. I'm only pro citizens of Tamil Nadu. I'm not even using the word pro Tamil because there again it tends to make you sway one to the left or to the right or whatever, whichever way you want to see it. Everybody is a citizen of Tamil Nadu. All those who have been here. There are many of my friends from Rajasthan and Gujarat and Maharashtra and West Bengal who were born here, who studied with me in school. So for me, they are as much concerned about the welfare of the Tamil people as we should think of the welfare of the people of Tamil Nadu. This is an election being fought for the first time without two of the giant leaders of the main two parties. Both Madam Jayalalitha and Dr. Kalaignar Karunanidhi, both of them are no more. They are not in the picture. And their party continues to be, both their parties continue to be the main opponents. Now, what issues are there? I'll be honest with you. From what I have seen and what I have experienced over the last so many years, this government or any government can only do so much. A lot of it is with the hands of the public. The government can only give you a free vaccine, but to take it or not to take it is in the hands of the people. The government can only advise you, please don't go out without a mask. Observe social distancing. If you don't, we will fine you. Then there will be a group of people who will turn around and say, this violates my civil liberties. This is infringing my personal freedom. Another person will turn around and say it is going against all medical science. Medical science says wear the mask. Medical science says this. So it's a never-ending argument with the people. So an election is a time when the people have to voice and say, yes, we want this. The Tamil population has always, or the population of Tamil Nadu has never given a fractured mandate.
Yeah.
I do not know which way the wind is blowing, nor do I want to hazard a guess.
Yes.
I have met friends of mine who are saying, after all, Edappadi has done a decent job. What did he not do? I think keeping the party together and then carrying on for 4 years itself is a tremendous achievement, let alone the fact he has done A, B, C, D, E. There is another group which says, like Madam who spoke just before me, who says A, B, C, D, E has not been done. And that the alternate party, which is the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam or the DMK, will do a better job. The public somehow seem to know what they want. And somewhere down the line, they've gone and given their ballot to a party or a leader. However, they have always almost stumped most poll predictions. When it comes to state elections, when it comes to the parliamentary seats, winds are very clearly seen. It's either a pro-Modi wave or an anti-Modi wave or a pro-BJP wave or an anti-BJP wave. We pride ourselves post-1967. Most people, especially activists and others, will say, we are a rational society. We have been done. No, you go to any temple even today with corona restrictions. It is fully jam-packed. Where is the rationalism? Where is the atheism? People are thronging to astrologers. People are thronging to Vastu specialists, to numerologists, to palmists, to, the belief is very much there. So it is very wrong for all of us to sit back and say there is one single trend in Tamil Nadu. No.
Okay, fair enough.
There is one trend.
I agree with you, and I think, one thing that you've said, and almost everybody who I've spoken to about Tamil Nadu elections says the same thing. Very difficult to say what happens this time around, and we're not going to hazard a guess, and let's not do that today. But let's have a conversation about the culture and the dynamics around, political events in Tamil Nadu. For example, Professor Ramu, why is it that in Tamil Nadu, the two Dravidian parties have such a strong hold? And while parties like BJP, who've ridden the, Modi wave pretty much across the rest of the country, are still struggling to find a toehold in this state?
Thank you very much. I think, in the last... the 4 years have been like turbulent years. I would put it that way, because the turbulent years, in a sense, that the government in power, that AADMK government led by Edappadi Palanisamy, and did not have, after the passing away of Madam Jayalalitha, and did not have the strength of a strong leadership, and in the process did not have adequate members in the legislature to be wielding the sufficient power and the flow strength. But it has survived, and simply because it had the backing of the center and the BJP, and then the tactical influences of the higher political institutions, and which was very, very visible. And then in case of the DMK as well, has been passing through a very challenging time in terms of the leadership transition after the passing away of the demise of Kalaignar Karunanidhi. So like both parties are at in kind of a transition mode. That's the first thing. And then to your question about like BJP is like that is very, very interesting. Like for the last 10 years or so, BJP has been making several significant moves and steps into Tamil Nadu to come to reckon and to in the process of it has been saying there is a decay of the Dravidian parties. There is a decay in the Dravidian political party system. So there is a vacuum and to both DMK and then as well as like, AADMK vacuum. And like, but this vacuum has not been found. That's the most interesting thing. And so what is a contrary factor, and going with the flow of your question, is that in fact, the coming in of BJP in the last 10 years and more aggressively in the last 4 to 5 years, it has regenerated. It has brought in a resurgence for the DMK. And DMK was a slump low in 2009, particularly after 2009 and 2011 elections they lost, and 2014 elections they had lost, and 2016 elections they lost narrowly though. But the point is that, like, the DMK was kind of a long slump period. I think what has happened to the DMK is that the regeneration, the resurgence that has happened at the ground because of the DMK, because of the BJP factor, the aggression, that the drive that the BJP kind of established, and bringing in this concept of like the religion. And like, some of us are arguing that about rationalism, and then like, the atheism, and like, even DMK's vote bank has people who are religious people. I mean, like, but they made no business. I mean, if DMK made business out of no God, but people did not make business out of DMK for saying that. It's like, you have to look at, there is a lot more to understanding about like, religion in politics. Correct. And so that, Tamil Nadu is one state which has very, very clearly made, we have not abandoned religion even in 1967 when we put the DMK in power. And then, like, in terms of like, there's a very large, even in the private, religion has been very much private aspect, private part of thing. But in the public sphere, what has been in the recent years is that even if that is the case, like, for example, that BJP took this march on the Vel Yatra. Yeah. The Vel Yatra, that it's supposed to be a very huge campaign that ended up with the 300 people in Tiruchendur. And then what I am trying to convey is that, like, there is a much larger, the definitions of politics in Tamil Nadu is larger than what metaphors BJP can take, what metaphors that the DMK can offer to resist. DMK, with all its strength of rationalism and everything, still could not prevent the sustainability, the survival, and then the progression, establishment of the religious institutions in Tamil Nadu. In the same way, the BJP will never be able to put down the Dravidian identity of culture and religious. Okay,
so you made a couple of interesting points, and I'm going to pick up from the last one that you referred to, Professor Ramu, and take it back to Salma. DMK this time, Salma, has come out and promised special pilgrimages, religious pilgrimages. They have promised 1,000 crore, if I'm not mistaken, as a temple fund. DMK leaders have in the recent past contributed to the Ram Mandir and the cause of the Ram Mandir. So let's respond to what Professor Ramu is saying. Is there a strategic shift? Are we now shedding that rationalist kind of an agenda that we had, recognizing that people don't want that anymore?
Our government always doing a lot of things for the Hindu temples. Not this time only. Not only. When the Tiruvarur, the chariot is not working sometime, but our leader only, he started again that running the chariot. Okay, this Hindu temples, so many funds we gave to the Hindu temples. Not only now, that BJP, they wanted say some message for the people. We are against Hindus, but this is not not true, because we every time we implemented so many reservations for the people, not only minorities. Our reservation goes to Hindus, not only minorities. The people, BJP, they wanted polarize the vote bank. Hindu or minority, we are against Hindus. The people are very clear. People knows who's working for the people, who's working for real social justice. The DMK and Kalaignar Karunanidhi is doing a lot of things for the all the Hindus and all the everybody can get everything from our DMK government. Not only these people, not only that everybody, every single person can benefit from the government from in DMK periods. But this BJP, they wanted to polarize the vote bank. But the people is very clear. They knows what they wanted. This Tamil Nadu is very clear. We never behind vote for the religious
Well,
things. We
okay,
are
okay.
for the people who's working for the people, who's giving some good things for the people, schemes or development. Our DMK only doing a lot of development for this state every time when they are coming to the power. Our leader now promising a lot of
Yes, for
manifesto.
now, of course,
manifesto,
Salma, it's just promises that Stalin can make. We will have to wait and see if they come back to power after being out for 10 years, what they're able to do. But I take your point. Now, so one aspect, of course, is how parties are viewing, the religion aspect of it and how they're linking it to their political strategies or the messaging that they're sending. The other aspect, Gobinath, would be, so how is the Tamil pride versus nationalism card really playing out for people? Often to some people, when I ask, they say, no, BJP can't do anything there. In fact, the presence of, a nationalist party like BJP is just going to dent AIADMK's fortunes as well. For the common man, for the people that you interact with and you host and have conversations with, how does it play out?
See, more than these disputes, the most important factor for the people is the growth. The first important thing is the growth, and as well as it's equally survival. Because of this COVID and other stuff, 2020 gone mad, and a lot of people lost their employment, especially the small sector people, as well as the daily wages. See, interestingly, the automobile industry is growing up on one side. Other side, the small shops are closed. So the expectation of the people is on one segment it's a survival for a lower middle class or even middle class. Again, middle class is an aspirant segment which wants want their growth also, and their expectations about the daily routine life become very important in this election because it was disturbed due to COVID or the other issues. So they expect, on one side, the survival is the biggest problem for lower middle class people. On the other side, the aspiring people want to grow. So the balance is the important issue. But it is very unfortunate that no political party is talking about what is a post-COVID rehabilitation plan. That's a major thing that people are expecting. They want to come back to the routine life, as well as there is a stagnant in the growth. Generally, Tamil Nadu used to grow faster. So that they feel that whoever is going to come to the power have to balance this. I want my daily things to happen without any problem. For example, standardization of prices. On onion is selling at the cost of 100 rupees in a day. In a couple of days, 5 kgs onion is 60 rupees. So a middle class can't work with their budget. So they want a peaceful, comfortable life. What? So the second most important thing is the security. So these are all the major factors, I think, are disturbing people rather than what you were talking.
Okay, very interesting. Let's also say good evening to Chinmay, who is joining us right now. Chinmay, we started off this conversation by having every panelist tell us what gets them excited and interested about any election, and if there is anything specific this time around that you're watching out for.
I think at least for the past 5 years, and a little more than that, I am looking for a party which is talking about and walking the talk, especially with regard to women's safety and dignity for women in public spaces. I generally notice that even politicians who generally, speak about women, and this is like across the board, right? You could name all these guys across from BJP, DMK, XYZ, everybody. But when it comes to dealing with women or speaking about women or referring to women in public spaces, they are all uniformly abusive. Look at their social media, accounts. Look at how they generally look at women and treat women. How they speak about actresses. So you will find, some of these leaders, putting up a poster of an actress and calling her name, slut shaming her. So the general. My thing has always been about the hypocrisy of all of these men and also sometimes women who are very, very actively in the part of the same patriarchal slut-shaming space. And none of the political parties have spoken about LCC, right? The local complaints committees. I don't think if they even know about it, right? Most of them don't even know about it, especially with regard to sexual harassment cases. So as long as I am personally concerned, I know two parties that I'm not going to vote for, simply because of how they have been platforming molesters and rapists and people who are abusers, men named in the Me Too movement. So I'm not going to be as a woman, and that's a personal choice.
But do you find any difference in any party there? Let me ask you this question, this point in a different way. Is there any party that you feel perhaps does want to or do more or focus more or at least make its netas a little bit more aware of what's right and what's wrong politically, what calls for slut shaming or what is being sexist and what you shouldn't be doing?
See, all of this comes from top down, right? So if the guys at the top are going to behave in a certain way, their followers are just going to be sheep. They are going to be both the women and men. So basically, they wouldn't care if a rapist or a molester is associated with the party, and it's okay if some women get molested and raped on the way. It's okay as long as the party wins. So this sort of a hypocrisy, even with the followers of the party, both men and women, is something that I have been calling out very, very actively. You're looking at star campaigners from a particular party, and that man is abusive to the hilt. And I even called that out. I'm not going to name that because then it becomes very, very different. But overall, I don't know yet. I think probably there are a couple of parties who may have said that we don't want to be abusive with regard to women, but then.
But do you think, for example, and in Tamil Nadu politics, Sripada, and then I'll go take this to Salma and Mohan Raman as well, so many actors and filmmakers join politics. The biggest of your political figures have actually come from the entertainment and the film world. But now, this time around, it's Kamal Haasan. Do you feel that as he starts his new party and promises to be different from the two existing ones, the big ones, will that make a difference?
I wouldn't know. I'm not going to be saying very particularly about would that make a difference to me. I'm only looking at how people in the party have generally been speaking about, especially I have been pretty much somebody who was banned because of speaking up in the Me Too movement, and the people who banned me are very, very openly associated with two very main political parties in Tamil Nadu. But most of these people in all these parties, as you very rightly said, all of them have political affiliations, and they have all crossed over from cinema to politics. Their stand, especially with regard to platforming molesters and rapists and abusers, does not really change much. So as a woman who's been a part of this, and especially with child sexual abuse, a lot of them are not talking about that. That's an epidemic that's been going on time and again. If you really ask me as a woman, I generally think they're all the same. Honestly.
Okay, Salma, do you want to weigh in here? And I'm going to ask you, Salma, to keep your political leaning hat, the political connection hat separately. So speak to me and speak to us on this conversation right now, just as a woman voter.
Now our manifesto, our leader Stalin is announced district court every district for women against women violence happening, we need a court everywhere. He is announced. Okay, and one more thing now, this time 3.10 lakh, I think 3 crore women voters are there, new voters are there, but in the whole our history, we can see a lot of women schemes were introduced. Women empowerment come from only DMK. We have a lot of various schemes we announced, we implemented, and education and everything. Now we also announced so many schemes for women. Self-help group, they can get more funds from the government. A lot of schemes now announced. Maybe women, every woman can get 1,000 rupees. This is not free. This is the right to get their social right to get the money. We are doing lot of announced lot of women schemes now. The 24,000 for women, they can pregnancy time they can
So
get.
how many women candidates are there in DMK this time?
This time only less. We know everyone at the DMK and ADMK both less candidates introduced this
On
time.
an
get the
average,
chance.
every political party in our country gives about 10 to 12 to 13%. Some of the better ones will go up to 15%. Mamata Banerjee celebrates it as a great achievement when 18% of the ticket allocation goes to a woman candidate. That, unfortunately, is the reality of our political parties. And the level of inclusion when it comes to women leaders, or even giving them a candidate, giving them the opportunity to fight elections and win elections. But let me move on from that aspect for just one bit.
I know. I want to tell one thing.
Yeah.
When the without implement the 33 percentage for women reservation,
Yeah.
the parties announced one candidate, one place. Other people, other men, they can contest against the women. That time automatically the people they can try to.
I disagree with you, and you know, in fact, for a party whose leader like Kani Modi is always at the forefront of demanding that the women reservation bill goes through the parliament, why wait for the reservation bill? Start your change at home. Start by giving this opportunity to women in your own party. Start with the local elections, the state elections, as you fight for the bill in the parliament for that reservation. So, like Chinmay said, I can understand where even her disillusion, mindset is also coming from. But Mr. Mohan Raman, I want to ask you this question, and for our national viewers to also understand. What is this deep connection between the artist world in the film industry specifically and Tamil Nadu politics?
Oh, because the influx of films, or should I say entertainment, into politics began in Tamil Nadu way back in the 1930s. It's let me trace the history of what happened, if you can give me a few minutes.
Yes.
Pandit Motilal Nehru, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's father, wrote to the famous Satyamurthy, who was a Congress leader here, saying that the freedom movement has not yet taken deep roots. It has not reached the grassroots in Tamil Nadu. Why? Can you do something about it? And Satyamurthy was an amateur dramatist. He used to go on stage and do drama. And he noticed that, from his drama group, there were a few people who were actors. And every time they walked along in Salt Satyagraha or this or that, the crowds were larger. So he decided to rope in people like M.K. Tyagaraja Bhagavathar, K.B. Sundarambal, and a few others who were then mega stars into the freedom movement. That brought in N.S. Krishnan. That brought in a few others, by which time Periyar had started his movement in 1948. Independence had been achieved. N.S. Krishnan wanted to enter politics. He was denied a seat in Congress. People like Rajaji objected to the entry of such people, film people, whereas the DMK embraced them. And that is how politics and cinema was born. It all happened in Tamil Nadu under the guise of Mr. Satyamurthy, who was a very big Congress leader. Unfortunately, Satyamurthy and Rajaji were like this in Congress, and Satyamurthy died young. When he passed away, all the actors who had joined the freedom movement and therefore the Congress were left without a godfather. On the contrary, the person at the helm of affairs was anti-actors. So they gravitated en masse to the DMK. And that is when people like M.G. Ramachandran, Sivaji Ganesan, all of them were there between 1948 and 1955, which was the growth, the initial years of the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, when my father too was a member of the DMK. So it is not like politics in Tamil Nadu have been totally, politics and cinema have been away from
Always
Tamil Nadu.
connected.
It was born in Tamil Nadu for the nation. Today, if N.T. Ramarao and Chiranjeevi and other actors in other states are doing well, they all owe their gratitude to one man called Satyamurthy, who thought that if he roped in people who can draw crowds, he can better the cause of Mahatma Gandhi. He can better the cause of the freedom movement, the Swadeshi movement. And that's how it was born.
Yeah, and Mr. Raman, one aspect that you just mentioned, and thank you for that, because I think a lot of people don't know the history, but that's where the deep connection really comes from. That's one thing very unique about the Tamil Nadu political setup. The other thing I feel is how people respond to both political figures and even your film stars. The extent of support and fan following, and if I may say, sometimes it's overwhelming, the kind of fan following that we see, and it's for both. You will not see this in any other state. That people will back a political leader the same way as they back a star, and sometimes then it's interchangeable and the star becomes their next political leader. Professor Ramu, would you like to give your insight on this as well? Something which is very unique to a Tamil voter.
I think you're quite right, because this is a phenomenon actually. In case of how the national movement was supported by the theatre, and then the theatre and cinema in the early years, in both in India, it had played a social reform, as kind of a vehicle for social reform and a vehicle for political advocacy. And that is how in the national struggle, as well as in the rise of the Dravidian movement in Tamil Nadu, then MGR became a phenomenon. And so many others tried to see MGR as a role model, and to take the lead. But few succeeded, for instance, with Jayalalitha, and many others could not, because even for MGR, he had spent considerable time and energy being part of the Dravidian struggle. And Jayalalitha applies the same. But in case of the more recent leaders like DMDK, Vijaykanth, and then many leaders many film stars are getting in. But the point is that the best example is that Vijaykanth, why he could not survive is that politics demands much more than what you can articulate through the cinema. It's the long tenure and then sustenance in the field, and the ideological and political basis. People who often say that, the cinema stars become leaders, but it requires a kind of a stamina, energy, and political will. And that's where I doubt with many new faces emerging. For instance, let me throw this challenge, even to Kamal Haasan. Kamal Haasan is an actor, is kind of becoming a political leader and subsequently contesting. But you look at him, he is staying in a Taj Coromandel in South Kovai, Coimbatore constituency, and going for a campaign. But this could have never happened in the tradition of Tamil Nadu politics. Now you see, this is the kind of, you may call it as a new generation, kind of a timeline, but this is not the kind of the cinema stars who came into politics. Yeah. So that is where the distinction between the cinema stars who worked in the grassroots at the ground, cinema stars who come from the top of the screen. And so there is a difference between the two. You cannot just take it.
Well, I am afraid I'm completely out of time. I don't know where these 45 minutes have gone, but thank you so much. It's been an extremely insightful conversation to have all of you with us from various walks of life. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Viewers, this was just round one. And Tamil Nadu, there is so much to talk about. The culture and the link of the culture with politics, the various dynamics that play out in different regions, the stars and the superstars, the fights between AIADMK, the DMK, with the national parties just tagging along. So much to talk about, especially what's happening this time. And we would love to hear from lots more of the citizen faces. So we're going to continue with this. We'll have a part 2 for Tamil Nadu as well in a couple of weeks from now. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Things are just heating up. The polling day is April 6th. And of course, we find out the results only on May 2nd. Can Palaniswamy make a comeback? Is a stronger chief ministerial face? Or is it Stalin's turn? We'll wait and watch. Thank you for joining us.